Hello there. Oh, it would appear the tests were made and tests were failed. Yo, Scrooge, how you doing? Oh, okay, there we go. For some reason, Magneto, your early chat didn't make it in there, but somehow mine made it. How's everybody doing? Yeah, I put it on ultra low just to make sure, so hopefully the quality is good too. You know what? I'm already off to a bad start. I planned to have a video running, and I screwed it up. But here you go. While everybody gets comfortable, give me just a quick minute or two because something is not quite right. Let me. Oh well, it is what it is. You know, I added another monitor and it's still not enough. How's the volume sound, guys? Is it I turned the music up a little bit. Is it it's not too loud or anything? Sweet. All right, yeah, I was messing around with the latency a lot to see what I could do to make that a little bit better. All right, so before we get started, all the tests are testing. That's good. You guys can see the chat. I can see the chat. I can read it. That's a good thing. Sadly, it's never enough. Work always expands to the available monitor. Yeah, I know. I was like, and I wish I could show what it looks like, but I have like two monitors like crammed in over here, and they're even like overlapping each other, and I'm like, I still don't have enough to be able to see everything I want to see. But hopefully I fixed the problem that so I don't know if you're here. One sec. Cloudhead joined as a root node, the top tier membership. And this was after all the internet messiness that happened. I think most of you were here for that in the last stream where the internet went out, and then it seemed like nobody was still around. So I sort of said, okay, I guess I'll end the stream, and then put on the ending stream, and then I saw a bunch of messages saying we're still here, so I popped it back up. So what I was getting at is that, like, I was all frazzled and I was looking at the chat, and then I'm like, okay, I got to focus on the code. And like almost comically, right as my head moved over to where, why is this not playing? Come on. Right as my head moved over away from the chat, I'm like, okay, I got to focus on that. Cloudhead joined the memberships, and I completely missed it. So Cloudhead, if you're there, if you can hear me, I'm sorry. I pinned a thanks to the chat. Also, the fishy person joined as well. Their message made it into the comments, I think. But thank you. I really do appreciate that. And part of that. So let me pull this up here, and I don't know if you can see that in the background. I got a UPS, so we don't have to worry about that happening again. So I've got, and I think that's going to be permanently a part of the set behind me. Give me 2 seconds. All right. Holy, I just shook everything. Oh, it's a pleasure watching your videos. Thank you. I'm glad. I'm blind. I wish that it had come in a more colorful box. It's a brown box at the back. Can you guys see that? You are seeing the larger. Why? Oh man, something screwed up. Sorry, you should be seeing the larger view. Are you guys seeing my my gigantic face, or is it I'm seeing two different things here. Oh, well, hopefully I made a good choice. But yeah, so thank you to the Cloudhead and to Fishy Person. Cloudhead, I missed it. I'm so sorry. But yeah, and one thing with my set, sort of my set stuff back here is sort of pretty much everything in it has a story. I'm not really like a collector or anything, but it's just these are all like things that I have owned. So if something back there piques your guys' interest, then okay, thank you for letting me know the large view. I was seeing a preview, and for some reason YouTube was showing me a preview of like 10 minutes ago, which is super helpful. So yeah, if anybody sees something of interest on the set behind me, and I'm probably going to be rotating things in and out. If you ask the right questions, you'll get some good stories. That is the design pattern booked on the table. Well, the music. Oh, hopefully the music isn't too loud for you guys. A little too loud for me. It was distracting me a little bit. But I got that fixed. Yeah, that's let's see. I have the so I have design patterns, the original. Here, we'll go back to the big one. I've had you know, that's like the old school design patterns book. My wife got me video game design for dummies. Not sure what she was trying to say. And then I recently got this book is a good one, Game Programming Patterns. I saw that was recommended to me recently, and been looking through it. All right, so today, I guess I don't want to get into the story too much, but if anybody's been noticing, like I mentioned this on the Discord, and so also if you're not on the Discord, the Discord community is amazing. The link should be in the description, or probably a pinned comment, probably all that stuff. It should definitely be somewhere. And let me know if I missed it. But Discord, I did let everybody know that I was going live, right? Everybody got the update this time. That was also my bad. So yeah, I had like a kind of a personal thing happen, sad thing, and I don't want to really get into it right now at the opening, but so I hadn't been as active as I had been, but I had been working in the background. As you can see, I kind of channeled that into going a little bit above and beyond on some of the things and jumping a little bit ahead. So today we pretty much just want to kind of hang out. I was going to open up the project and kind of walk through like the setup and how it's all working and go through the design. Also, there's like what it kind of leads into something I've been wanting to touch on for a while, which is sort of the way that in the video that came out a couple months ago that has the project settings, we'd set up the load level, and that's not really a generic scene loader. So I kind of wanted to hopefully clarify that a little bit, and when we get to that point. Okay, so enough of that. Let's actually open up Godot. By the way, if you guys, I try to make the streams a little bit more sort of free-flowing, a little more like entertainment. Well, I don't know. Maybe it's debatable how entertaining I am, but at least try to kind of bounce off of you guys. Hey, it's pawn takes pawn, right? Not just pawn. My brain like put that together like maybe a week ago. I kept saying like pawn X pawn. But at least I didn't call you Pawnee. That. But I appreciate you being here. Pawn. Okay. Or is it like Hunter X Hunter? it's like Dragon Ball Z, or like what the only other one I can think of is Sailor Moon R. It's because I was trying to introduce my daughter to that, and she got to the episode where I guess spoiler for Sailor Moon, sort of, where everybody dies, and then like, but the next episode it's like, but hey, everybody was fine. And my daughter didn't watch the next episode because she was so sad, and she won't watch the show anymore. I tried to get her to watch it. Okay, so let me show you what I've been working on. I put a GIF up. Evening. All right. Yeah, today I'm just sort of kind of planning on walking through the project, show what I've been working on, kind of talk about like the what the design is and kind of how I set this up. So if I launch the game now, so you can kind of see that the camera is kind of being faked a little bit, but the really cool part of it is that I can pop up here. This guy is an enemy encounter, and then running into him triggers the battle scene. And like the really cool thing about this is an entirely different scene. Hello, fellow humans. How are you doing? I'm doing great. How are you doing? This is running a little bit slowly. So yeah, so let me see if I can pull this up with that on the side there. And I also I put markers on my. I realized last time I keep pointing at the screen like you guys can see me. I was doing a little bit of work over where my face cam is, so I actually have I got these guys here. Like these guys are all over my monitor, so that I can see like, okay. So I've got an ultra wide actually, so like I have stuff on one side that you guys can't see, which helps me with my screen real estate. Okay, so anyways, so you went and have a picture of the scene battleground in the battleground scene. How did you know? Sorry, one of my feedback was drinking too much early on. I mean, I'm drinking a LaCroix, but that's probably a little distracting. Okay, so yeah, so I'm in this is the main level scene. Their test level, the one that's been shown for a while, and basically I just added this guy in. And actually, so when we get into the code, it's going to be kind of funny. But a lot of cool things came with the way that this was designed. Is that just because I sort of gave everything its own responsibilities, it just allowed for a whole bunch of experimentation and things like that. So yeah, so watch what happens on the remote tree and that. It literally just popped off to a scene that looked exactly the same. Then it's running a shader to tilt. I have a pretty weak debug. Let's make that a little bigger for the. So and then I added a couple spells, and I have this guy casting the spell. I'm slowly getting a little better with my art. Instead of having a ghost, I have a, just an all black person with legs. Very much looking forward to seeing on your thoughts on what counts as large effects. The GPU particles there look light, but maybe the bottlenecks usually in the loading scenes. Yeah, so that's actually, so let me run the big spectacle spell. Boom. And I I don't know if you guys see that. What do you guys think of the other way that damage number pops up? Does it look like it's a bit of a slowdown? Yep, and the ground is burned. That was something that I was going to talk about, but actually, yeah, if you look at the number, so I was sort of debugging and being like, man, what it's like slowing down. It looks like it's it looks like it's like something's really killing the speed, and then I realized that's literally just because I'm like tweening it in the way that it's set up. That's just the motion that it has. So the cool thing about this is that I can reset it, and this was the thing that sort of like kind of was the big light bulb moment for me, was just being on the screen. And again, everything has its own responsibility. So even though it's not meant to do that, it still burns up the ground. And it's in the, it's in the top-down view. And then, this was my first button to do it again, so it probably should be better labeled. But then, you can do the go into battle motion with that. Okay, sorry. I don't know if you guys can hear it. My dog is scratching at my door like crazy. So I will be back in 2 seconds while I while I let him out, and he'll just have to be outside for a couple hours. Chrono, man. Quiet until I get started. Sorry about that. Okay. Yeah, my dog Bruno. He was perfectly content, and then right as the stream started, he's just like was scratching at the door. He wanted to be outside, and I'm sure probably in 10 minutes he'll want to be back inside. So yeah, the cool thing is that so what I was talking about in this scene is that there's so many different things that like have their own responsibility. So like so reset it and go back to like the normal thing. So the spells themselves are just effects, and part of the spell effect is that it's an animation, and part of the animation is that it has like the impact frame. So like, excuse me, on this one it's the big flash. That's basically where the number comes up. That was the idea, was, oh, this is just emits, hey, this is where the impact is. So when the big screen flash happens, that's when the number shows up. And sorry. My brain's a little yeah, I'll go into the story about what happened maybe a little bit later, but make everybody sad. I'm still a little bit distracted. But yeah, so the cool thing about that emitting a signal is that I also have this fire that, it has. Where is my fire? Give me fuel, give me fire. It's a tool script and can turn the on and off. So I'm like, oh, that can listen for the signal and that can go off. So, oh yeah, it makes sense if oh yeah, this big block of ice falls. It turns it knocks out the fire. Then this big explosion happens, and it knocks out the fire, or turns back on the fire, and also sort of burns everything. Like I don't know if it makes sense that this is sand and this is dirt, but I was just kind of messing around. And yeah, what's happening in that is it's literally just swapping between a couple of that was it's funny. So I have I can display it out in real time. I took a video of it and I was showing my daughter and I was sort of like voicing the ghost character here, like coming in and be like, what the hell's going on? And then this happens and being like, what the hell did you do? You put my fire out. And then like casting the spell and going like, oh crap. My daughter like made me repeat that now, that so I have basically that skit memorized when it was just me like just kind of joking around. How am I signaling from the attack to the bonfire? Yeah, so actually the underlying code of it is pretty messy. So like right now, it really was a proof of concept. So most everything lives inside of this battle scene, and there's a lot of, like, you see the big red debug. There's a lot of debug stuff that doesn't really belong here if I was doing this correctly, or like hooking like having the correct systems and all that. So like all the pieces are there to be hooked up correctly. Does it feel like you make it really messy? Yeah. So well, I made it messy so that I could prove that it would work, and now that it works, it's I can clean it up. So basically this whole battle system came along from let me see, I should open up the other. This is I cleaned I did a little bit of cleaning on the level we worked on the last stream, if anybody remembers that. Although I was supposed to do, I should have said at the beginning, I'm planning to do weekly streams. So I'm planning to do every Thursday at 1 o'clock and just kind of keep that going. I had planned to do that last time, but that was the thing that got interrupted. That is a lot of code in one script. Yeah, and we'll walk through it in a little bit. The main thing is, so basically the idea, and what I did was I created this sort of, this battleground capture scene, which it's right now it's still kind of funky. Like eventually this will be sort of like its own like system. But all this is doing is this just like when I run the game, I can give it so I can give it a center, like a marker, and then I can currently have it set up to get the whole thing. Like I wanted to do, like for the first one, I'm like, let me just get the whole 640 by 360. But like even though the battle's gonna be 360 by 180, no, 340 by 180, but 320, whatever, half of it. And so what this does is this just captures an image. And so like I have in my assets, which everything is, since I have been working around and making things and just sort of, this is like a full, like I branched off, like let's see if I can make this crazy idea work. So everything is sort of still in a messy place, but it did create, where do I have, battle scenes. So I have a couple of them that I've taken when I was kind of messing around. But so the big ones here is that it has the mountain and then the sky, and because this scene is sort of special with the ocean in there. Currently, like the battle scene actually just has a copy of that background water, and that's something that's been looming over me, that I have this 16 by 16 tile that I'm using this giant image of because it looks cool. The shader looks cool, but I just need to get the shader to work right with tiling, and that's just one of the things that's been on my to-do list and I haven't gotten done yet. If you guys give me 2 more seconds, I'm sorry this is bad form, I'm gonna let my dog in, and then I will be back. Sorry. I think this is all of the stuff they tell you not to do at the beginning of the stream is just leave the audience. It's my dog Bruno. I try not to talk about him so much. Yeah, shaders. Shaders are magic. And actually, so they're really cool, and they can be. I think to a lot of people they're magic, but I know if I do this magic thing, it makes this ice spell, this fire spell, high blaze. And there is a lot of things being. So I did maybe get a little carried away in my attention to detail, but I think it came out pretty good. Yeah, and this is basically all shaders and then the GPU emitter. Okay, Bruno's lying down. If we all just chill. Hopefully he'll go to sleep. Then he won't be doing his whole I need to go outside, I need to go inside thing. Okay. So what do you guys want to see first? Do you want to walk through the battle scene and how that's animated to sort of go into the I'm thinking you guys are over there. Yeah. Do you want to take a look at the battle scene, or do you want to take a look at the spells and how those are going? I guess the first one to tell me, unless there's an overwhelming response. Or maybe it's going to be my choice. Spells. Screw it. Thank you. Okay. So, one of the things I wanted to bring up on this is so something that I know that I've said in a lot of comments. Oh, you didn't see the animation? Actually, I can get rid of these markers because I don't think I need those anymore. Out of their markers. So actually one of the kind of cute debug things I did is I literally took a screenshot and then just put it on a texture rect. And actually because I wanted the spell centered, but I wanted to have a good view, be able to press F6. Which I don't have hooked up to animate right now. Pawn's curious on the 3D effect. All right, well, we'll walk through the spell real quick. Everything's gonna be sort of super high level because I only understand so much of the shaders. I just kind of looked up, hey, I want a fireball, and I kind of wanted to do this thing. Let's see. So we've got the core ball, and the cool thing is pretty much just shaders be rough at times. Yeah. So let me pull this up here. Core fireball. So there's a lot to unpack here. And this is like, I didn't write this code. I looked it up and took pieces. I think I cleaned it up last night, but in my where'd it go? Nuts. Sorry, I have too many shaders. Anyways, yeah, I was gonna say in the one that stretches the battlefield, that one I actually did do a little bit of work on that one, directly writing it, and then was just sort of like looking it up. Okay, how do I do this? How do I do this? So and the thing that I think is really cool is that, so part of it was like, in my main scene, if you look at my sun here, it's literally just I get rid of the water. It's literally just a polygon that I added extra extra color to so that it glows. And I could have made a shader that looks like that. And that's literally just taking just doing it with code, saying, yeah, mate, take these pixels, make them orange. So yes, let's do a quick overview of everything that that this thing can do. I think if I went through this line by line, I might lose my mind and, you know, probably lose my audience. So let's try not to do that. But a lot of this was just for getting everything right. And the cool thing that I like about the way this was set up is, well, actually, this one's not as cool as the other one. But the main thing that I'm animating, let me just pull that up first. And I also did almost all the animation without realizing that I could pull that out and actually see without having to hover over it. Like I must have gone up to this thing, like gone over there, but like it's just, if you click on the center, then you can open it up. So it does have this collapse and radius that sort of drives it, the core ball here. And so what it's doing, zoom in on it here, and hopefully my face isn't blocking too much of this. There. So yeah, let's see. This is going at 60 FPS for 400 frames. So what's the time? I could do the math in my head, or I could just play the whole animation. Is anybody faster than the clock? 6.66. 7 seconds. That's yeah, I did that on purpose. All right, so basically all this. Okay, and if somebody could tell me why this is happening, this has been bugging me. Sorry, I get easily distracted. Although I try to when I go off on tangents, I really try to work like a function stack where I'll just like add stuff to the stack as I get distracted more and more, and then hopefully pop it off and get to things. But sometimes it overflows and I lose track of where I was. So if I ever lose track of anything, just let me know. So if you look at the GPU particles, and maybe it's why am I I had to modulate it to have it clear out at the end. That's why it wasn't sort of clearing fast enough. ADHD game dev. Yep. I mean, that's kind of what makes this kind of funny. The other day, I got a text, you know, at 5:30 from my buddy. He's been learning Godot, and he's been working really hard on his game, and I was sitting at the computer working on this, and got a text like, "Man, I was working till 5." I'm pretty sure he was expecting me to be asleep, so I just picked it up and was like, yeah, that'll happen sometimes. This is like, oh man. It's like, yeah, that's one thing that I love about like game dev or just anything creative, like either like writing music or any of that stuff. It's just like, I could do it forever. Like, I feel like I could do it forever, and I'm still like, even if I'm like tired and sometimes super frustrated, it's always a good time. And that's why I'm really doing my best to hopefully make this into a career, because you know, I liked my old career for a little bit. It kind of went bad at the end, but also I didn't like really like the end result of what I was making. So let's see if I can make this happen again. And now it won't happen. So I'm really hoping that I can make this into a career, and then stuff just seems to get in the way, like what kind of kept me away for the last 2 weeks. So okay, so I was gonna ask a question. I don't know if I can make it happen again, but okay, so I have my GPU particle that's emitting. Maybe somebody knows this better than I do. Let's see, I believe I have it set as a one shot. So yeah, which should just, and it's full explosive, so it just pops everything on screen. And in the animation tracks, oh, here, can I have my face? I'm gonna leave you for a second. You can see, you can see that it's... So I tried making this 0, but it should be discrete, and it literally just should be on, off, and it should only turn on there. But for some reason, let me unhide my face. Can't go for too long without the face here, right? So I don't know. You know, maybe that was the better way to stream. The default particle process shader material in GPU particles also has color curves, alpha curves. Animating in the self-modulation doesn't work consistently. So yeah, the only reason I added that in was because, and it actually does have a little bit of color curve going on in there, but it just, maybe, is there a way to, oh yeah, see if I uncheck it. Maybe the problem fixed itself with time. Yeah, the reason I was doing that is because it's just like the particles were sticking around for just a little bit too long, so I added just like a self-modulate to go back to alpha. So that's pretty much all. It's just keeping the color that it has. So yeah, is that maybe that's just causing it, like when it gets here, it's like, oh, something changed, so let me... Yes, particles, not emitting in the editor. Yeah. So I have been able to get into, let's go straight into the battle scene here, which I have been using F6. And when I originally set up with the whole load level situation, I was thinking F6 might be gone until I set up a debug thing, but it is still useful. So yeah, because nothing, I did this really quick and nothing is like fully safe. Like I can kind of enter, oh, no, that one came in time. Okay, that one didn't come in time. I don't know if I can get it to where it, if I like jam on it, where the particles won't, yeah, no. If you cast it too fast, it's like you got to get it just right. The particles won't show up. Okay, so. Animating the ball. So, I mean, it's super easy, better than inconvenience, right? You just make a shader, you make it do a thing, you make it do another thing, and that's that. So the ball, and an interesting part is that there's the actual ball actually moves up a little bit. Yeah, partly because I wanted to have like this sort of rising ball, and it does bob a little bit to sort of give a little bit of motion to it. The ball itself is not a texture. It is this. It's a color ball, the color white, and it's the shader that's doing everything. Oh yeah, does kind of look like Sauron's eye. I'm gonna get rid of the. Oh yeah, can I make that look left and right? Yeah, that could make a pretty cool effect. Oh, I still have the... Do I? That's something. Sometimes I pause in the middle of this and it'll show up on the... There it is. Oh, it's not the eye. Ah, whatever. Okay. So, I've been rambling on for a little while, so we'll speed through this. You guys are all smart. You can see what's going on here, right? Yeah, ball come up, ball get big. And then there's this Chrono, which is basically a lot of this stuff is just doing the same thing as the ball. It's just kind of popping up and showing up. And then the cool thing to sort of make it feel a little bit unstable is that I changed the speed of that corona as the center of the sun is, or ball is getting brighter. And then like the big thing, so for the longest time I didn't have this, like it just didn't look quite right. I'm like, man, it's like something's not right about, like I want this to look like a real cool collapse. And it's amazing how much oh no, I've lost it. Did I double click it? Whatever. It's amazing how much that little ring does. And that was actually one thing I wanted to bring up. I have so I went into Final Fantasy 14, played my character, and did a whole, I think I probably spent a good 2 hours in G pose, which if you don't know, it's basically replays like the you can set it to replay the last like the last move you did or emote or spell cast or whatever. And then you can also sort of start stop. And I got a whole bunch of reference pictures. Let me get to the one. And I don't know, does any of you guys play Final Fantasy 14? I'm curious if I'm speaking to people that haven't played it, or if anybody's played through it. Whether I need to give my sort of recommendation and warning talk. I'm not going to spoil anything in any of this. This is all just reference. But I played Black Mage as a main, and I did not know that this is the spell Despair actually is a fireball coming up from the ground. Played for like 2 hours back when it came out on the PS4. Actually, I did the same thing. I have got to log into that character. I played it because there was like a free beta or something. Like the game was already out, but it was like a free PS4 beta. I remember playing in it, and I just, part of me, it just didn't know. I was used to most people say they're used to WoW. I played the Old Republic. But back in those days, you had to, in order to go from a class to a job, so it's like Thaumaturge to Black Mage, you had to get another class to level 15 or something like that. And so I'm thinking, oh, this is pushing me towards like the crafting skill or whatever. So let me go and do a crafter. And then I became a crafter, and it immediately put me to level 1. And I'm like, and it like took off all my gear and all that stuff. And I was like, wait, what the heck? What's going on? Like, if only I'd understood that it was like by design. Like, it felt to me like I was like changing to a completely different character, and then I was like, oh, screw this, and that's kind of what kept me away from the game. But I will say that if anybody hasn't played Final Fantasy 14, let me get to some of the stuff that I was going to talk about later. So this is Princess Trunks, who's wearing I was getting the poses, and she was wearing, in my defense, it is the default I guess skirt for the character. But there's one shot that's I really wanted to capture the pose, but it's not very flattering to Princess Trunks there. So when it comes to Final Fantasy 14, if you know what you're getting into, which basically, if you count all the way through Endwalker, and then I guess now Dawn Trail, that's basically 6. So Endwalker, beginning through Endwalker is like a full story. So that's like, you're basically getting into 5 like full-length RPGs, with the first one being like a 6, maybe a 7 out of 10. And then there's a little piece in between. There's like the patch quests in between that are really slow. But after that, you get to Heavensward, and it gets really good. And it is far and away like the best piece of media like video game, movie, book, TV show, series, whatever, by far and away the best experience I've ever had the joy of being a part of. Like this game, like I'm someone that doesn't get like emotional when watching movies or TV shows or games or whatever. Like I was literally in tears in certain scenes. I was jumping out of my seat in like anger and like excitement, like throughout the whole, you know, it is the course of 5 RPGs, so 300 hours. But you know, if that sounds like something you'd want to do, that's my pitch for Final Fantasy 14. So the reason I brought this up is that so a lot of times when, you know, bringing up sort of reference work, it's a lot of looking at sprite sheets and things like that. And that can kind of, I don't know, it kind of feels like a lot of times you pull that up and it's like you're copying things, or it's almost, because it's a simple, relatively simple drawing, it's kind of feels more like a copy. But in this case, I was just referencing the 3D and just kind of taking the different frames of how the spells sort of resolve. And yeah, I wonder where my ice idea came from, huh? It's completely original. So this was the one where I was like, how do I make this collapse happen? And this happens so quickly in the game, but like I caught it on this frame. I was like, oh, it's this black ring that shows up, which is, it's gone immediately. This one crashes into the ground, so it's a little different than mine. But it's actually really helpful to get you know, different sorts of references. And that brings me to another point. I have another file I was going to open up, which I now, since I have a second screen, I can bring it on. So for the level coming down, there's too much. Sorry about that. That should be there. I literally I have this mini thing, and I'm like, this is kind of what I want my camera to do. And so I'm like, well, let me just do it in real life. And because I have to fake it in the 2D, let's be game dev, right? And that's that was how I figured out how to do this, or at least make it look semi good. Oh yeah, that's true. The free trial of Final Fantasy 14, like you can play all the way to Shadowbringers now with the free trial, and I don't know why you wouldn't want to go on to Endwalker if you make it that far, but it's arguable whether Shadowbringers or Endwalker is better. I might lead towards Shadowbringers. Okay. I'm looking at my outline. I missed a good joke that I had set up. Oh man, was gonna give you guys a fake out with the old paint thing from last time. So let's make some levels. Okay, so let's go over the battle scene. Everybody understands how the spell works, right? You guys been taking notes, right? It's gonna be on the test. Okay. So actually, I'm gonna take this out because this auto runs. So what I did is I set up this this capture rig, which I went over a little bit earlier, and all that does is it allows me to say, we'll see if it's open book or not. No, I had a test. I think I might have told the story before, but I had a test that it was our final exam for embedded systems, and the final, like the first test was multiple choice. Like the second exam was sort of like a little bit of multiple choice. The final one was every answer had to be in ARM assembly code. It's like that is a hard thing to do. Yeah, I'm gonna quiz you guys on how to implement a battle screen, and you have to explain it to me in you know, ARM32 assembly. Yeah, that class was it's the one class I got a D in, which somehow that ends up being a pass. And you know, then I ended up becoming an embedded engineer, and you know, don't want to toot my own horn, but I excelled at it and until I got fired. But I wasn't really doing embedded stuff when that happened. I strongly believe that it wasn't my fault. I don't know if I have any former managers watching. Probably not. Okay. So pretty much all of these numbers were for sort of figuring out exactly how to. See, I have the battle screen projection here. So there's a whole bunch of stuff to mess with. And so what this scene is, and the general idea, dealt only in IMB 370 assembly, so ARM would be an upgrade. Oh man, there you go. You can ace the test. So this scene, this one's a little bit special because like I set it up with the water, and actually I tried tilting the water with everything and having it use the normal map, and it looked amazing. And that was one of those moments where I had to tell myself, like, okay, write this down, do it later. You don't have time. So the thing that I really like about this is that the way that it runs is just, there's one slider that's a transition between 0 and 1. And basically there are two states. There's on and off, but then just it's going in between. And a lot of, let's see, hold on. I have these numbers checked in, right? I don't want to change a number and then like totally lose it. Okay, yeah, that's probably fine. I have it checked. Okay. Oh, I know what I was going to do. I was going to clip content. So the eventual idea is to, really the idea for this battle system came about where, like, had I been making an RPG just on my own, I would have gone like the Chrono Trigger route, just be like, yeah, let's have, you know, meet the enemies in the battlefield, or have them jump you and let you go straight into a battle. But then thinking as making a tutorial, I was like, well, you know, especially we were talking about changing scenes and things like that. It's like, you know, I really kind of want to make like a bespoke like battle scene as sort of part of that. And then, you know, the little like devil on my shoulder who's you know, Mr. Senior scope creep is like, well, why not both? Maybe you can make the world into you can make a bespoke battle scene and also have it be in the world. And that's kind of where this all came from. And so the idea being, so in a level like this, it's going to be an interesting challenge. I haven't gotten to this one yet, but like, you know, if this is the scene, so because the scene is double the size of the battle scene, like the battle scene is and the idea the idea is for the battle scene to be a strictly authored, like it will happen in this area. It's not like a on the fly, although like I probably could be done on the fly, but I think for the sake of doing this, it would it'd be better to just kind of keep it, especially for like, you know, vistas like there's gonna be special areas like this where the, you know, there's like kind of the cool background water or whatever that you want to make sure to capture. But in general, the idea is to capture So what it's doing is it's capturing, and in this case, the tile map, and it actually combines, since these are different tile maps. Really only has the corners there, and one of the optimizations I need to do is to not capture the full picture and actually just capture what I need for the battle scene. And so when the battle starts, it basically, so I have an offset. Right now it's a little kind of funky. It's funky the way that I do it. I just have a sort of export. I want to have like an actual marker in the scene, but it tells it to offset by a global amount, which that allows the entities in the entity root stay in the scene and stay in the same place. And also, like, I don't know if you can see. Okay, let me pull up these two guys here. So I went through a couple of permutations of it, and speaking of which, another one of my references for like when it, like kind of the light bulb moment is that I pulled up some of like Final Fantasy VI. It's like, how do they make their like sort of bespoke battle scenes? And like, okay, it's sort of, you know, they flattened out the ground and sort of, you know, just in the, you know, the artwork picture. So I'm like, you know, I could do basically like a mode 7 kind of thing, flatten this thing out, make the background come into view. It's like, well, how do I do that? So I have the rig that captures this whole thing, and it goes on this texture rect. And this is actually all. So there's a whole bunch of like kind of debug stuff in here, but when it plays the battle start animation, so right now I have just a timer so that, you know, you can kind of, you get a chance to see the battle started, and then it plays the animation, which is just a tween. And it's a little bit messy, and part of it is that so when the real thing happens, in order to make this look a little bit more seamless, like imagine my character is the one that's in the fight. Like when the fight happens, like he'd like jump over to position while everything's happening. So that kind of gets rid of the sort of, I don't know if you guys saw this, like if you look at the guys, especially on the side, you can see that they sort of, as much as I did to kind of keep them, even with the bonfire, which was the one, that's the one that I actually really tried hard to kind of keep in the right spot. It's not exactly going perfectly with everything else, but that's just kind of how it goes. So there are two main things that make the effect, right? There's the shader, which is the first moving the world. So let's see. So I have defined, and it's literally, and I tried a bunch of different whatever they're called, different tweens, and linear ended up being the best for the world transition. So over the course of 0.75 seconds, it's calling this function that sets the shader progress, telling it to do it between 0 and 1, which is literally just looking at that material, and it's just moving this line, going from 0 to 1. Now the hard part, and what's going to be hard about like the rest of the levels, I feel like you'd probably drive yourself trying to align everything every time you pull that effect. So that's the cool part about it. And I guess when I make the second one, we'll really see, because this one I kind of gave myself an advantage and a disadvantage, because there's the like the bonfire here is kind of special. Like I wouldn't expect there to be objects in every scene. It's basically just like the enemies and the players. And so they need an animation that battle starts, and like I wish I could make my guy jump, but if like, you know, the battle started and he like, oh, why did that look all weird? Did I move something? What did I do? Oh, it was because I already had it. Sorry. So imagine that he's jumping. So when the battle kicks off, he like goes over there while that's happening. Oh, I did it too fast. Oh, you guys get the idea, right? Like starts moving and he's in place like as the level comes down. So that's sort of my way of dealing with that sort of sliding stuff. It'll be tough to have this to do this for every enemy encounter. What makes you think that? I mean, I guess the idea is to have like a hand authored zone for every enemy encounter. But so part of let me just talk. So part of the design of it. So there are no collision layers or tile sets that are also getting skewed separately from the perspective shader. No, so actually, so the rig just captures an image. So what it's doing is when it switches scenes, this thing is just it's a single texture. That is, I mean, this thing is just a. There's no way to like solo. I'm gonna give you the backdrop. So it's just that texture, and that's what gets skewed, and so what ends up happening with it is so what I'm picturing is like, so there would be like sort of battle zones that are drawn out in the map. And I've actually been playing a lot of Chrono Trigger recently. And one of the things, pretty much every single battle has even though it's still in the top down, it has a special, it's like a defined camera angle, like of where the battle takes place. So no matter where you run into the enemies, the camera will always pan to the right position and then start, because they've obviously they made the scenes to look like battles, look good. And so that's the general idea here is, even though I'm restricting the camera here, like, so if the camera was let me see, it's not going to do it. Let me see if I can. So if the camera was down here, the idea would be like, oh, if the battle happens, it's going to the first part of the animation would be to bring the camera, zoom and pan and whatever it needs to do so that it's in that exact area so that it swaps out. So the way you're still moving freely during this phase isn't intended to be in the final version? No, no. So it does kind of give a little bit of proof to the having the entity layer here in the main game, like how the world's broken into. The reason it's still there is because I'm swapping out the level and the players and the entity root. So the idea is that in the battle scene, they're technically like battle actors, but these guys can stay long enough to do like their jump or get ready animation, then it would probably swap in. And who knows, it might end up being part of the maybe one of the states in like the friendly state machine. And same thing with the enemy. Like that's the thing that kind of looks the worst because he's furthest away, that he sort of bounces around back there. But the enemy would be jumping into place. And so, yeah, going forward, the idea is to, okay, say I want to do this one. I'm going to use my rig to grab this section. Then I bring it into the battle scene where I have the battle arena. And in this case, like if you look at this level, there's no backdrop. So I could use just like this sky here. And the idea being is that when the transition happens, like if the level's going up to there actually is something in the shader that'll give it a little bit of blurriness in between here. And that's sort of going to fade in the skybox basically. And that's what this is. Just this scene has the the water and the sun to make it kind of look a little bit cooler. Let's see. Sorry, I lost my train of thought. So basically, the way that this thing is authored is that, so battle kicks off. DOF. Depth of field? Yes. Okay. So the idea is, you know, there's this pre-authored scene, and when the battle kicks off, the camera is going. The camera, if it's somewhere else, is going to sort of pan over so that it is centered here. Right now, I'm kind of faking it by making the vertical limits, and then it swaps into this identical scene. But it has, instead of having, you know, all the layers and all the objects and stuff, it can free all of the, you know, objects that are outside of the view, and just like sort of register like what all the you know, the players and the entities that are going to take part in the battle, and if there happens to be a bonfire or something in the middle, then that's something that would be added. I'm hoping I don't have to do that too much, because that would be pretty hard to have to like hand author like those things. So in this area, so there are two big parts of the effect. So this is flattening out, but then at the same time, if we look at the code, the other big, sorry, let me make that a little bit bigger. Now read that. The camera is the other big portion of this. So it only moves by about 16 pixels, but it's also, that's a good percentage of the 320 by 180 battle scene. And it's also doing this this back tween, which sort of, and it's ease in, so it kind of jumps up above. So that's what's giving it sort of the, like, and there's a delay to it, and then it pops up, and then there would be, you know, bing, like battle starts, UI pops up, all that. So those are the two main pieces of it. And the idea would be in this, that it tilts in such a way, and then there's actually a cutoff. Let's see. Yeah, so I basically can say like how much I want the furthest Y and X, the width and the height, and like where it cuts off. And this one, it just so happens that it's a cliff, so it doesn't have to do anything. But the idea would be that if the map comes to the top, it would sort of reach this sort of natural area, which would reveal the skybox, or if it's an interior, it would be revealing the whatever's been mountain behind it, or the walls, and it's that effect of the the kind of mode 7, and then the camera moving, and all of that. Right now it's all, and so one of the things that I said in the beginning is that I got a little reckless going, and just there's still some foundation work to be done, but I kind of wanted to make some cool looking spells and have something flashy. I wanted to black mage, wanted to make a huge explosion. And yeah, the thing that really sells this, and it's getting running a little bit late. It's almost about time for a quick break. But before that, just one of the big things is the impact. That it's I couldn't figure out how to make this impact look good, and just that little bit of blue popping up really made the scene. And so if you look at everything that's going on, since everything is sort of crammed into one script, but the nice part, it's all the pieces. So even though they are crammed in one spot, as sort of a proof of concept, it could be pretty easily updated. Could be easily put into the correct systems, because a lot of this is on the debug button pressed. So whenever I press the fire button, it's gonna perform that spell. Right now there are no checks on anything, so it literally just tells, okay, actor number one, you're the one casting it, to go do your casting animation. That's him like putting his hands up in the air and lighten up, and then awaits that complete, figures out which spell it's doing, and then based on the spell, as long as there is a spell, it plays the spell animation, and then waits until the finished. So there are two big cues. There's the impact and the finished, and so there's a bunch of things that is on chill impact. Whereas on fire impact is the big one, and that's where I pull out the tricks, where I actually swap out the arena 1 for arena 2, and that is what produces this effect. Where everything sort of gets burned in basically using that impact frame to hide a sort of a swap. And I probably could have just added the tiles. It would have been easier, but it was one of those just kind of, can this work thing. So yeah, about time to take a quick couple minute break. Be right back, and then we'll get down into doing some code and looking more at a little bit more of the technical side of that. So I'll see you guys in just a couple minutes. All right. You guys are still there and you can hear me, right? I have two windows telling me two different things. All right, so sorry. Had 3 minutes to run around my house and do a few things. Cool. All right. I guess I could tell the sad story of why. So, you know, I had I guess it was 4 weeks ago. I planned to. I had the first like main stream, and then I'd sort of planned on. I had planned on stream. I didn't announce it or anything, but I was planning on streaming every week, and then haven't streamed until today. And also, I planned on making them more like, you know, development. Well, you know, working on development instead of sort of walking through development that's already done. But so I put a message out on the Discord. I didn't want to put it on the announcements or anything. Like my cat passed away. Cat was he was 19 years old, you know, so he was an old cat, and he'd been around for a really long time, but it's still a little harder than I'd expected. And so like especially for like the first couple of days, yeah, sorry, I don't want to like, you know, be didn't want to be like depressing anybody, but like, you know, he lived a good life. You know, he was 19 years old, and he had cancer, and just like, you know, passed away, you know, peacefully on top of my NES power pad. I don't know if I should be touched by that, or if he was trying to like get one last bottle knocked off the counter. Hello. Oh, thank you. So yes, that's where I've been. That's where I've been. That's why I'm still a little bit scatterbrained. Like, I noticed myself kind of losing track of where I am, because I'm just, you know, so I knew that I had that cat for 19 years. Is a long freaking time. Also the also the you know, the there you go. I lost track of what I was going to say. One thing that does make me sad is that had the cat, his name was Kiff. We all called him Little Kitty. Had he still been around, I'm sure everybody watching the stream would know him, because he had a knack for knowing when, like when I was online or whatever, and like, you know, especially during remote work, all my Zoom meetings used to always get like interrupted by that cat. So you know, it's a sad thing. So I spent a couple days kind of chilling out, playing. I played Chrono Trigger, you know, it's my favorite game, and then just sort of kind of quietly working on stuff when I felt like it. I don't speak English, but I follow along. Thanks to, yeah, I'm actually amazed with YouTube dubbing. So you speak. It's funny because one of my windows has your first message translated. I was originally going to make a Spanish channel because my wife is Hispanic and speaks. I speak Spanish okay, but like I understand it better than I can speak it. And then like the AI, it's funny. I noticed that on the bigger videos, it seems to do a better job of matching what my voice sounds like. So it's really interesting to like hear me talking in like German or Japanese and all that kind of stuff. But but yeah, I'm thanks for watching. I'm glad that you're able to watch. I don't know how much you can understand of the English I'm speaking right now. It'd be nice if we could do real-time dubbing. Or real-time, yeah, dubbing. Let's see. So yeah, so anyways, yeah. With that retreading on the story, like I'm a little scatterbrained right now, and you know, just kind of stuff happens, and it's one of those things that At least from what I've seen, most of my audience is a little bit, seems to be a little on the I don't want to say older side, but they're it's one of those things where you don't know how you're gonna deal with that kind of thing until it happens. And it wasn't the first pet, but it's just like you always think it's gonna be something else, and it just always affects you in a different way. So, and part of that is that I have a whole outline of stuff that I was gonna go through. I thought about maybe like doing a stream and like just playing like Chrono Trigger. I don't know if you guys would be interested in watching like a part of it is looking at like, because I know I actually am really interested in how like CRT technologies and like what the Nintendo or Super Nintendo could do. So there's a lot of really cool tricks that they did that that don't look impressive unless you actually know that, oh well, mode 7 only has one background. So but they're doing a mode 7 with this other scene that's rotating and pixelating, which it shouldn't be able to do. How's that happening? So I don't know if you guys would be interested in just like not playing a game, but kind of walking through and playing a game, but also kind of giving it with a I guess a game designer's eye to it, and kind of trying to get into the minds of what they were doing. So let me try to get this back on track here. Okay, sorry. Yeah, that's something that something that, and it really fascinates me how like how the CRTs worked, that they basically drew every it's drawn. They didn't have a concept of a pixel, but it's basically a dot at a time going vertically across the screen, like one line, but it's doing that and drawing at 60 frames per second, although it's interlaced, so it's drawing every other line, then the next one draws, shifts down and draws every other line, which is why the old games have scan lines, because even back in the NES days, they were like, well, we want 60 FPS to get better animations, so they instead of interlacing, we'll just have a line that skipped, and then it'll make those scan lines, but on the plus side, we get 60 frames every time the game runs. We get a new frame. Not only but how the artists are using the scan lines to convey texture. And that's something that I brought up on the last stream a little bit. Oh, I'm not familiar with the Princess Peach sprite challenge. Well, while I'm bringing up what I was going to talk about, so obviously I have a lot of whatever, because Chrono Trigger is sort of like the artistic basis for my game. I like looking at a lot of what they have. Don't look at that. And just seeing how like they put things like this together. And I think I lined this up to the grid. And these guys were like masters. You look at, maybe these aren't. Let me see if I can find a good example. Like if you look at like this rock that needs to be a different color. That's bugging me. It's like, oh, it just looks like a mess. And then, oh yeah, you bring it out, and then you have the scan lines that are that you have the CRTs that's kind of blurring everything together, and it looks perfectly rounded. And that's why it still bothers me when I see people that are playing on. I mean, it kind of depends on the games, because some games you could tell they didn't give the art direction as much I guess love as Chrono Trigger did. But like, especially if you look at like Magus's Castle, which I think I have. Oh, it's just the exterior. You can really see. Yeah, you can really see that they had planned for the stretch of the CRT, because obviously they don't. The moon doesn't look like that. Let's see if I can actually grab this whole thing. But you know, they planned for this thing to be stretched out so that if you actually watch it on a CRT, it looks about not quite like that. But it looks like that, but kind of smooth together. So yeah, if there's a if you guys are interested in old technology talk, like I mean, I've got a Virtual Boy back there. That's not the new one. That's the original Virtual Boy. So I look. I guess I don't know, connoisseur of old technologies, and like again, I bought that when it came out and played the. Maybe that's why I can't always read my chat, because because of the red glare coming into my eyes. Okay, so everything kind of went off the rails because I lost track of what we were doing. What would you guys like to see? Would you like to go into more of the sort of the art design and sort of the idea behind the spells? I also kind of wanted to look at talk a little bit about like the level loading and getting into the code, and kind of some of the things that came up from working on this, where I realized that like, oh, you know, like F6 is still actually very useful. Without having to like do anything special based on our the main game scene setup. That's one thing that I know I could tell when that video went up, and that's why it took me so long to like to narrow down the script for that first. It's like, I know that this has like a code smell to it, and there are definitely comments that I saw in that video where I'm like, yeah, I know exactly what you're thinking about this thing, because it does kind of have that smell of potentially becoming like a god object, or getting too complex, having all the different roots and everything. So I guess I can choose, or you guys can choose if you want to look at some code, look at the loading stuff, or we could talk more about art, or I could grab what could I grab? Oh, I have Halsey's journal back there from Halo Reach. Could do a dramatic reading of that. Talk about the code. All right. Yeah, I guess a bunch of game devs, and I'm yapping about stuff that's not code. Yeah, so maybe this is why you'll see why I was a little hesitant on it. So this is the big. So for anybody that watched the last stream, we set up, and it was interrupted by the internet going out. But it ended up working. I cleaned it up a little bit since then. But we'd set up a level transition, which is what this guy is, and I totally hijacked that for entering the battle scene, and that just sends out a signal, which currently I have it in the main game, which is part of where that kind of code smell comes from, is that you can see like where main game could really become just like kind of full of everything. And I just commented out, oh, instead of loading the level, load the battle. Because at the beginning, when this launches, I just tell it to load the level, which, to refresh everybody's, let me know if you can't read the code or anything. I'll try to make it big enough and make sure that my face isn't in the way. So this is actually a of type base level, and so it has to work with it was designed to work with the level. And yeah, there's this whole checking to make sure it is a base level, and if not, freeing it. And it does that so that it can connect the signal, which in this case, it was our level transition signal, and also to connect the player into it, and currently connecting a debug camera. So I'm not too happy with the way that that's working right now. So when it came to like, okay, I want to see if you know, I've got the battle scene that looks good. Like, can it actually work going into the battle scene? I'm like, well, yeah, just hijack all that and get rid of some of the stuff that I didn't need. And so what the code is doing, it's loading the battle. I should have changed the variable names, but I'm basically doing the exact same thing, except I commented out where it checks if it's a base level. And I did add a current battle route. So let me talk about like the kind of like the overall design, because we clear up sort of hopefully clear up some of the complexity or the seeming complexity of all this, because I'd originally meant to have a lot of tutorials come out like back to back to back to back to back, and it seems like life always seems to get in the way of my plans for this channel. But yeah, everything started getting had one thing happen, then everything started going good again, and then the thing with my cat happened. But here we are. I'm back now, a little more scatterbrained, but yeah, introducing this whole big thing makes it seem like it's a little well, it is kind of complicated, but the idea is that it's versatile, right? So just taking the concept of a battle right now, and I'll just walk through what I have and kind of where it's gonna go, and especially because like I haven't even introduced like the HUD or the UI or any of that stuff. The idea being is that the battle UI is going to show up in its own layer, and in case you notice, like because the spells they were getting affected by the this has a environment to modulate, and that's another thing I gotta figure out. Might make that global, or not global, but have like a set environment at the top level. So they're actually using their own canvas layers. So I'll walk through the code of, let's see. So it all starts with the base level, and this is something that I cleaned up from the last stream. So I have this. Get rid of that. Get rid of that. Where is sorry, I thought I had it up. 1 second. Let me grab the code here for the level transition. So, and this is a little messy, and we hard coded some stuff. It was at the end of the stream last time. Need to look in the UI, but I haven't gotten theme in mind. Yeah, UI is an interesting beast. They I think it was just 4.7 recently, right, where they added the offset, so you could do a little bit more with the animation without being too locked in. But yeah, even where was it? I recently had it's just the debug of the battle scene. Like there's all margin container, horizontal container, VBox container, which is good because like, if what scene am I in? I'm in the right scene, cool. Because then it fits it to the screen where the actual battle scene itself in 2D, it's just resting at the edge of the screen. So it's cool, but it's just you end up with a lot of containers. Did I open up the... Yeah, okay. So I have this area 2D that is the level transition. And so actually it might make sense to have a common... Actually, I don't know. Because there's like a battle transition and a level transition. I sort of hijacked the level transition to do the battle transition. They might be different enough to need to not come from the same parent. But as is right now, there's level transition. That is what in this level, you walk over here, which it's not going to work. Well, actually, I have a crazy idea. And this is where I do need the debugger, the bootloader, is that, oops, no, I hit the wrong thing. Is that way I can load levels. So let's just see what happens when I use that one. Oh yeah, look at that. I think I'm in this scene. Hold on. Wait, can I? I don't know where I am. My character is like off over in the corner somewhere. Okay, so it's just this area 2D. The original design was like, hey, if you're walking out of the scene, this is how you leave, and the code. So we'd hard coded this mainly because the power went out. We were running low on time, and also just sort of just a proof of concept to see if it worked. Or to see, just to make sure that everything kind of connected correctly. This one we kind of knew would work. It was just we went the simple way first before making it complicated. So it's taking the body entered signal from itself and just setting up a handler. So if a body enters it, it checks to make sure it's a player. If not, somehow, since I don't have anything other than the player, it would be interesting how that would happen. There's also sort of a one-time trigger, which I think last time I didn't have the trigger. I didn't have any sort of check on that. I made the Boolean, and it was, I can't remember if I checked it and never set it true, but something was. But anyways, yeah, this just makes sure that it doesn't trigger more than once, in case something happens while the next scene is loading, and then it's going to. Because part of that is going to defer the monitoring of itself so that it won't be checking for the player. And I keep trying to scroll down. There we go. And all it does is just send a signal, transition requested to, right now, I have it hard coded to the battle scene. But the idea is that there would be like, I'm actually kind of mulling over a few different ways of doing it, of maybe having so I don't want to have like the packed scenes or anything in here. I like having the UID strings. So I'm thinking of the best way, whether I have like a global sort of lookup table where I can give it a key that says, yeah, load Castle 5 or load Heckran's Cave or something like that. And then it would give you the UID string. UID more safe. So, well, mainly what I was talking about is that like if I had, I guess I can do it with any scene. What I'm in level 3. So like if I wanted to. So I do this and hold control and let it go. Like the normal way that it would do this was that it would preload. It's giving me an error because of the name. But if you actually have like, so this is technically returning a packed scene, I believe. Yeah, it's a resource that's a packed scene. right? If I say packed scene. But so if you preload it, it becomes part of this level. So whenever the script is parsed, it'll find that preload, and then it'll load that into memory. And then if that test level has things that it preloads, it loads stuff into memory. And so, and this string could be, I think you can you change it? Yeah, but it would be nice if there was a way to just have this display what it knows what the scene is. It'd be nice to be able to have it without hovering over it. But yeah, what I was talking about was basically, instead of like having the loaded scene in there or anything close to it, just having the string, so that way when it comes to actually loading it, which happens. So currently the way that this works, okay, so this is the level transition, which is inside of the test level, and test level is a base level. And so I added to the abstract base level. So then this is a good example of not of an abstract class that has a non-abstract a signal and a method, because I mean, I don't know, you technically could override this and have it do something else, but what it's doing is excuse me. Because really, it's just a matter of connecting. So when we're in a level, and hopefully, okay, hey, cool, I am in this level. So when I'm in this level, yeah, I've got this. This is the collider down here, and we got to tell the guys up here, hey, we need you to switch out what this current level is for something else. And you can see it like this is why I added a sprint button. It's going to pull up the battle, but it does keep everything together and load up the battle in the level root, which allows the player to. Where are the players going to be? So if I go left and down, I should show up here. Maybe. No, he's lost. So I think that when we did it before, we'd actually I'd done an extra step and coded it into the test level 3. So all this is doing, let's see. So yeah, when we on the last live stream, I actually had like inside of test level 3, it was doing the signaling. Oh, thank you. Master Scaron? Master Sieran? Maybe if I purposely mispronounce everything, people will just think that I'm just making cringe jokes. I hope it doesn't look too familiar, but that's something that that is something that I talked about last time. Is one of the little lessons that I learned from studying the Chrono Trigger artists, sort of making how they make paths sort of in between the tiles, like especially things like this. It's a neat artistic trick that kind of like makes everything sort of line up, and like it makes sort of this line up in the middle, whereas if you had just a normal path, it would be a little bit offset. Okay, so back to the script. So now the only thing that test level 3 is doing is in the ready function is just connecting. So it has its local like transition. hey, it's this is a username. I don't know if you were in the last stream, but I talked about how on the test stream I completely butchered your username and called you what I said, this is sausage or something like that. How you doing? Yeah, I know. without telling the whole sad story again, I lost my cat. He was 19. So I was kind of basically took a week. Technically took 2 streams off, but just with the time that came in, just took that's why I wasn't streaming the last 2 weeks. So yeah, so now instead of having the level be responsible for doing everything, it's just hooking up the signal, and that because that's part of a base level, you could override this inside of any level if for whatever reason you needed to. But by default, anything that's a base level is going to have this signal level transition and this function to, you know, request it, which emits a signal. And so yeah, thank you. Yeah, it never gets easier. I've had lots of pets over the years, but he was a good cat. And he, you know, it helps that he had a very, very long life and very good fulfilling life. So that was good. And you know, he kind of quietly did it on his own. Like we didn't have to make any tough decisions. So that was the nice part about it. But yeah, that's what you guys tune into the stream for, is to watch some coding with a little bit of existential sadness. Which, if you enjoy that, like Final Fantasy XIV, it's a very good game. If you guys wanted to see, if you wanted to see tears, I could play through the end of 5.3. I think I might ball up on that one right now. I won't say anything more than that because that should be experienced. So in the main, so what we had last time, and this is because I added this, was and now it might be completely broken, but let's see. It is broken because now it's hard coded on this end. So what we had before was this was saying test level 2 instead of hard coding battle scene. So now if I do this, and I think I'm set to load into level 3. Yep. So this was the big triumph moment at the end of the last stream. Hey! Which now, if this goes into the battle, no, there's no way it's gonna break. I'm stuck in a loop. That's yeah, hard coding will only get you so far. Which let me undo that so that I don't get too confused. Uh-oh, where was it? There it is. Okay. I don't know if you guys noticed that the music from the test stream changed, because I spent so much time trying to find music that was allowed, and I found music that was literally advertised as like, use it for whatever you want. Like, it's like, change it, use it in a video game, use it in a live stream, and I got 4 claims on it. Which they haven't responded to my response, so they have 4 more days. So, you know, we'll see what happens. We're gonna see who gets the 82 cents that stream made. It's gonna make a really big difference whether I win that or not, you know. But I was able to find the old YouTube audio. Have I tried any other engines or just Godot? So most of what I've done is in Godot. Do you guys want? I made a game in C++. Do you guys want to see that? Let me just finish the thought here, and then I can show you something. Well, I lost my thought. Okay. So there's the transition, which is I basically stole that and I just put it on top of the indoor here, which really I need to get the color scheme to fit in with this game. But you know, my daughter made this creature. Can I make him animate? No, he's not animated here, I don't think. Sorry. I'm just proud of my daughter. She did a drawing of this creature, and I put it in the game. have I ever uploaded any games on Steam or Itch? I haven't yet. Mostly because so my first big project was Mega Man, which obviously I couldn't upload that. So, and part of that was, you know, usually the advice that I give people when they're starting out is to just like, you know, just make something like, and it's easy if you don't have to worry about the art. So like I did Mega Man, so I'm like, I actually because I'm crazy, I didn't copy paste. I literally drew out by hand in the sprites, and that's a true story. Like the entire every animation in that, or every texture in that, I actually drew, even though they are pretty much 1-to-1 with the actual game. And then I just threw everything at the wall, saw what worked. Like if I pull up my Mega Man, see, I wasn't lying when I said I was kind of lying when I said I threw away the first project, but I did start fresh. But I mean, like this still does bother me, the layout, but like there's so many things that I probably don't even know what they are. Like let's see what I have. This is probably gonna be a little hard to see, but I have, oh, there's a door two-way. I wonder what that is. I don't think that's being used anywhere. Okay, that is, I'm actually proud of that. I like that. And again, that's shader magic. I grabbed that's, I don't even know. Did I make the lightning for that? Why? Where are things and stuff? Oh, there it is. Yeah, that's just I don't know why I didn't use a color rectangle, but yeah, there's a bunch of nodes that I've been wanting to, like just the other day in the Discord, which again, if you're just joining and aren't part of the Discord, we do have a Discord. Well, I wasn't active in as much as I'd like to be in the last couple of weeks. I'm pretty active, but there's a lot of really talented people in the Discord, and probably 90% of the time when somebody has a question, I'm like, oh yeah, I got to answer these guys, and then like three like really smart people will respond. So we've got a really good community in the Discord. So if you're not on the Discord, check it out. But let's see, what other crazy stuff do I have in here? So I have a level section. I have a player spawn. Okay, I'm using the player spawn. I have a rectangle centralizer. I don't know. I wonder what that does. It probably centralizes a rectangle. Cool. Sorry, we're going deep into. We're about to hit Stack Overflow. I'm going deep on a tangent here, but yeah, in this I have a spawner, I have an enemy spawner, I have this spawner version 2, I have a kill zone. Actually, well, I think this is good advice. So originally, because everything in here works with hitboxes and hurtboxes, and so it had my kill zone, this big red thing down here, as just it'll be a hurt box, it'll do 100% damage, or because Mega Man has 28 HP, just make it damage him 100 or 1,000 or whatever. But because there are situations where Mega Man can be if he just gets hit, he's got like a bit of hit stun and is invincible, he can fall through that and then not get killed. So it actually did make an actual kill zone that is just, if the player comes in contact with this, that's it. Started from scratch, surprisingly good at teaching code foundations, especially variables. Yeah, one thing I really like about Godot is the way I do have some complaints about the I don't know if they're complaints, it's just like the ways that okay, that's enough looking at a bad project. Let's look at a okay project. Just the way that the code is pretty easy to, you know, if there's a selected spell, play the spell animation, then await it finished. Man, there's some asterisks to that, but it all works pretty well. So the one thing that I have is that the way that how you can like you can pass like a player class into a spell or into a function and change its velocity or whatever, and it changes the parent object. But then if you pass like a float or an integer or something into a function, it doesn't. It basically makes a copy of it, which I'm coming from C++, where you had the chance you decided whether or not what you were sending in was immutable or not. I see Sharp 83. Oh, I like that. I think I read that one correctly. I started with the tutorial architecture project structure and I really liked it. Set it up and ended up really having an issue with YSort. How to create... Oh, actually, I can... I had to create a whole new viewport. Yeah, so let me... That's actually really... That's a good... So that's part of what I had been talking about a while ago. So just pop a whole bunch of that stuff off the stack and look at the main game. So, and this I hadn't mentioned this in the original tutorial. So as long as there is an unbroken chain of node 2Ds or nodes that inherit from a node 2D that have YSort enabled, then YSort should stay enabled. So if I have YSort on the world, on the level root, and this is stuff I have added somewhat recently. I haven't used the effect root too much, but so then if you go into the test level, you have to turn it on for, test level 2, YSort enabled. Background, I don't think has it. Yeah. I don't think I have it on the tile maps either. And that's something that I do have to work on, is because I want to be able to like go underneath the cliff, but also on top of it. But that's going to be a whole other thing, because then you have to make sure that when you're on top of the cliff, you collide with the edge, and when you're underneath it, you don't collide with the edge. But so that you can't do things like, oh, well, pretend this was the cliff, where you just kind of walk on. It kind of breaks the illusion of depth. When you can just kind of yeah, I'm just moving left right. You kind of get that illusion of depth when you're going up here. Debug text overlay would disappear whenever. That's odd. So there's one thing with the debug text overlay, and I had to do it. Let's see. Because it's full screen, well, I guess it would help if I actually looked at it, because I did cover this in a video after it once I realized the issue. Because it's covering the full screen, if you set the mouse filter to ignore, and then because this is an instance, it's interesting that it lets the mouse go through unless you like have an instance underneath it. Where is it? There it is. So yeah, this is ignoring, and then recursively, behavior recursive is disabled. So that way, like nothing in here is going to get in the way. But that's interesting. So the YSort, the debug text overlay would disappear whenever you resize the window. Is it possible that somewhere it is? This isn't following the viewport, is it? Let me see. There's my debug text overlay. Could this have accidentally happened? Is this gonna... Oh, it's already gone. I wonder where it is. It could be that they accidentally hit the follow viewport. I don't know. But anyway, so let me finish my thought on the Y sorting. So that was something that I was a little bit concerned about. But if you go through, as long as you make sure that it's enabled at the top node of the test level, then anything that you need to be Y sorted, like the level objects. I don't think the environment is Y sorted, so it's pretty much just the level objects. So this guy and the fire and all that, and then because the entity root, that's where the player is. Oop, I hit two buttons at the same time. I don't know which one I got. So you can actually get some pretty easy-ish Y sorting. It gets a little bit hairy. Let me see. This guy's center isn't. Where did it take me? And this is another thing that I did not know, or I wasn't aware of, sort of the convention of actually looking at these guys can really, like, if you look at where the source of the battle actor 1 is, so his origin is right there. And so that one Y sorts well, but this guy, oh damn it, I fixed him. Okay, so pretend that was up there. Like if you have the Y sort area by the feet, or like where it should make sense. Like if you look at the bonfire, I think its origins is right down there. But there's a collider presenting it. Thought about introducing a sub viewport, but I hadn't verified if follow viewport was enabled. I have, in the past accidentally clicked on things like that, and then what did I break? Okay, perform load level. Yeah, and that's something that I do want to get into. One of the next upcoming things is so I'm gonna go more into depth on, like, setting up the spells and all that, like once this is kind of like finalized, and actually have designed a whole queue system for how the battle queues up, which is, again, with the idea being, like, since I kind of want to have the game be, I kind of wanted to be like getting ideas from the community, like we already kind of decided to make it a turn-based RPG versus an action RPG, but like, how exactly do the battles flow? So all of this is sort of flowing into a sort of battle queue system and like resolver for how everything works. And the actual battle scene here is what the resolver would do. It's just all kind of crammed into the spot where it shouldn't be. But it's sort of, starting everything up, and then when a button is pressed, let's see, not reset. So okay, sorry. So like when you perform a spell action, it's gonna, normally there would be a system that would do this. That would, okay, who cast the spell? Okay, party member number 1. So tell him to go do his animation. Wait for him to come back and say that he did his animation. Then do the start the spell animation. And then the animation does the impact, and then it has the impact, so that's when the damage pops up. That's when other cool things can happen. And then there's an end trigger. So then that tells the battle actor number 1 to play the end spell animation. So all of that gives you, if I'm on the right scene, this guy goes up, does his animation. Now the spell's taken over. There's impact. And this guy finishes. And right now there's no protections to like keep you from jamming on buttons and stuff, but in theory that would block from being able to do other things. And there's still like a million different kind of permutations of battle systems that can be done from that. I kind of have an idea of what I want to do, but I kind of want to put it up there, put it up and see what you guys think when we get there. But right now it's mostly just a queue of taking the let me put it together here. So it's so you have the abilities, and most of these are like resources. So it's all like data stuff. So the abilities, that this would be a lot better if I had a picture of it, but so the abilities, which, you know, for something like this high blaze fire spell, you know, part of it would contain the spell or a reference to the spell or the animation that it does, and that could be a resource. But then when somebody chooses to cast high blaze, that it would be creating a like a battle action, which contains like the caster, the target, the you know, maybe the stats, like, you know, if there's a magic stat or something like that for the actor, and then that goes on a queue, and there could be shifting of positions in the queue. Like maybe if something's faster, you could push back like somebody else, or that's kind of where there's more kind of fun design work to go. And then there's just like a resolver that when it gets to the end of the queue, then it's going to look at it and actually play the action. So like, okay, now this ability is happening. So basically kind of what I just walked through. It's like, actor, go do your starting animation. Okay, spell, do your animation. Okay, impact, let me calculate the damage, show the damage. And then, okay, spell's finished. Okay, other animation's finished. Okay, now we're back. Let's go on to the next thing in the queue. Okay, so for anything else, let me just walk. Let me just quickly walk through. Pretend like this is where I started. Yeah, level 3 has level transition. That's area 2D, which let's see. So the area 2D, which has a signal that if the player enters it, it signals that a transition's requested. And all the level is doing, it's just using this that's supplied as part of the base level that it extends. Oops. So all the level is doing is saying like, hey, I've got this signal and this handler for it. So I want to connect this that's in my level to the base the base signal and handler and call that. And so that's what happens. And then because it's part of a base level, then as part of load level, I'm just gonna find it over here. Then as part of load level, once it's done all of its stuff and checked and instantiated everything, it can now, because base level has that signal, it knows that it can safely just call, hey, connect the signal, and then it has its handler, which right now is kind of the root of, that's why things are weird. Which currently this should have like a lot of more checks on it than it does. But then it's calling to load the level. Although what I did to make the battle work is I just swapped it out for load battle. And I didn't go as far as to create like an abstract battle scene yet, but it would probably be something that makes sense. Right now it's just a node 2D that keeps track of the current battle. And part of that is because so currently I'm freeing the level, right? But it depends on how the memory looks, but it's also it's pixel art. It's hopefully not too much going on. So the idea being is you can enter a battle, you can remove the level from the tree, but not free it. And then, so that means it's not processing, it's not doing, it's not, no physics process, no process happening. But as long as you got to keep a reference to it, so you don't have a orphaned node that you can't get rid of. And the idea being is that, okay, well, the battle's going to pop in on this route. And then when it resolves, especially if we have the players perform the duty of like the battle actors, they kind of jump back into the position, and then you just put the level back in the tree. and then it starts processing again, and then like you don't have to worry about holding onto a bunch of state. It kind of gets frozen over there in the ether outside of outside of the scene tree. Oh man, just trying to think of a way to play on words of you can't see the forest for the trees with the scene tree. I don't know. I'm not clever enough right now. So yeah, so with the current battle that I have right now, it really is just taking that same code, even with the same name. You know, I obviously just copy pasted it, but it's taking the battle scene, so it is freeing the level currently, and then just making sure that it exists and not checking it. Obviously, not checking if it's a base level because it's not a base level. And something that I wanted to. Let me do a quick, I'm going to check something real quick, and if this is not... Ooh. Oh, yeah. You want to know how I did the rising, that big dome rising? Same idea, but vertical. These are just textures with and this is a very simple shader. Oops. Oh, here. Just move in time by a speed. And then this is 3 layers going to different speeds, and that does that. How fortuitous. I'm sorry, I was gonna look at my main game here. Yeah, so this is a more general idea of like a simpler sort of main game where there's just I guess it would make more sense for this to be the world layer. So it doesn't, because there's a, look at that, because there's a, I mean, there's a reason for all of the sort of complexity here, is because we're building towards something. But you could just as easily have a simpler main game with a single world layer. And then, like in this case, like the sections of the different levels that have the tile maps. I don't know if it's advisable to make a different tile map for each section, but that's what I did here. Something more like I'm losing my head. Yeah, something like, so, I mean, this already does sort of mirror a little bit the way that there's the level root, the entity root. And part of that is, I mean, so at one point I think it was named entity root here, but these are the ones that belong to this level. And so it's kind of, I can see a lot of people looking at this load level function and being a little iffy about it because of it does seem a little bit restricting. But one thing is we've already shown how it's nice to be able to have the entities kind of on their own, so that way we can tell the level to go somewhere else or free itself or whatever, and then the entities can still be there. There's also introduces the fact that you might have to clean up some, if they're off-screen entities, you might have to clean them up. But this would be just a simpler version of it, and like this is just, hey, there's one node 2D, there could just be one UI. I do have a pause here. Let me make sure the music isn't on here. Whew, that could have been bad. I was about to play some. I'm gonna get demonetized. But you can see how this one runs, where it's running that. I have the player HUD, and all the different HUDs are in this one level. And then I don't think I'm using the transition one yet, but from there. Like, I had a pause menu, but it was getting in the way. But at least there's pause that pops up, and that is now running. And so it's a much sort of simpler way where you are still sort of keeping the HUD, especially with a game like Mega Man, where you're pretty much just going to have this as the HUD, and then I put the debug inside of it, and then there's also this HUD overlay route. Actually, I'm curious if something else hook onto this HUD overlay route. No. Oh, something did for a second. Oh, I think the cutscene did. Let me see. Oh, there it is. Can I catch it? Yep. So that's sort of the simplified. So I guess there are a couple of layers, right? There's the you swap out the whole scene, and every level is a new scene, and you change, you change the new scene, and that's that's perfectly valid for some games. It's perfectly valid for a lot of games. Then there's the slightly more complicated, where just imagine these aren't there, and you just have a World 2D with a persistent main game, and then you have this monstrosity, which does introduce a couple of things that make it a little bit more difficult. One of the things that I've been wanting to get done is to have it's relatively simple. So the idea is to just have a sort of a bootstrap debug loader. So instead of loading main game, there would be a scene that gets loaded first, and that scene you could set that up. And I was looking at making a sort of an editor plugin, so you kind of choose. You basically replace being able to press F6. Either hey, scene I'm in, make this the main thing, and then that would boot. And under normal situation, like if you're just in release build, it would that scene's only job is to boot main game. But if you're in a debug situation, then it would say like, oh, I'm in debug mode. What are my options here? Oh, they told me to load level castle 2, whatever. So that's the general idea for being able to kind of replace the F6 inside of that. And I could tell, I knew when I put that first video out that there were going to be a decent amount of people that kind of saw the potential code smell, and it's still obviously it's still there when you see a lot of stuff being crammed in, but there is a method to sort of separate all this out. Like the idea being, let me see if I have an example in here. If I don't find it in about 20 seconds or so, then I just want to see how this is actually loading, because it might help explain. A lot of this is still kind of a mess because it's a work in progress. So when it changes level, oh yeah, this one's okay, but there's some code that's not so great. So where does this get called from? Yeah, don't really. Okay, well, sorry. So the idea would be that there would be, so like for battle, for instance, right? Like, so we're in level 2. We run into this guy, and instead of just changing scene to battle, there we go. The idea would be that there'd be a system at the top that gets that signal and says like, okay, I'm being asked to go into, this particular battle scene, and as part of a battle scene, I need the battle UI. I have these players in it, so I need to load up, whatever it needs for that scene, that would go on the different routes, that would sort of resolve like, okay, I need to load this into the level route, either clear or move these things from the entity route. In fact, we'll get to that at some point. But then that's where like the UI would come in, as there's the, that might, I don't know. You guys think I should rename that the UI route? Because it is, I named it HUD based on Mega Man because it was the Mega Man's heads-up display. But the idea being is that there would be a system sort of at the top that sort of would know, okay, if I'm getting requested to load this level, then I need to say, call, you know, the load level function, the load HUD function, the load, you know, transition, whatever, whatever is needed for the scene. And resolve all of that. So, does anybody have any questions? This is surprisingly fun. And one of the coolest things that, like, I don't know. Oops, see there. Didn't put any safeguards in. I think it's cool that like that this can affect the scene, and because it's all just, it has its own perspective. And another chill doesn't do quite as much, but it puts bonfire out. And I think you can go from there. Bonfire's still out. You can messes with the particles a little bit, but all right. So I went completely off script. I won't tell my sad story again, but I kind of have a reason for being a little, a little bit like this, where my brain's not all there, for a little bit. But I'll get better, I promise. Oh, here's this is something. When I had mentioned using different things, of all things to reference, huh? This is some pretty good animation. Actually, there was something when I noticed something in this scene, and this is just a cool like sort of animation thing that, especially because I'm not an artist, so like looking at these things a little bit more closely, I can see like this scene in particular. So it's, I think I skipped a couple of frames in what I captured, but and the movie runs on 2s, so every frame is 2 frames basically. But like there's this whole thing where she's going in for the sword swipe. She looks worried because he starts to teleport. Then her eyes turn, she smiles. Very next frame, now she knows where he's going to be. Very next frame is her spinning. Now she's going in with the sword. And then very next frame, boom, kick. And he's out of frame already. But it's like those kind of things, at least it helps me as someone who doesn't really know what they're doing artistically. It's like, oh, I can sort of follow the what they're doing frame by frame. I don't know. That was just something that I kind of had on deck if it got to that. All right. So before we call it a day, are you guys interested in seeing the first game I ever made? All right. Is your back? Oh yeah. This has shown up in a lot of videos. I was waiting for somebody to comment on it. Yeah, this is from there's actually a lot of significance to this area. So my background is from Final Fantasy XIV. It's I won't give it away, but it's a very heavy scene. It's a very good good scene. And it's originally my backdrop was from when I played through that scene, so there were other things in the picture, and then with the graphics update, it looked a little prettier. So I didn't start a new game plus and play through the entirety of Endwalker to reach it, but I just went to the same spot and took another picture. So yeah, let's I'm gonna find it off. So it's in. Oh, I really hope I don't need an update. Let's see. Sorry, I gotta find. It's actually it's all C++ in Visual Studio Code, or not. Well, Visual Studio. I'd use Visual Studio Code. It's all in Visual Studio because that's just kind of was the easiest way to get a compiler and stuff in Windows. Oh my goodness, where is... Yeah, I'm looking at folders named Monkey About, Mustache, Strategy Grid, Sandbox, RPG Test, Personal Test. Yeah, I wonder why I can't find this. No, but seriously, where did this go? Is this it? Oh, there it is. This is gonna slow everything down. So, okay, maybe I lied a little bit. This is the second version. The first one was all in it was all in ASCII. Actually, I do recommend looking up if the video is still around. There's one load coder did like how to make Tetris, and it's just in the console using ASCII, and it's brilliant because it's just like it's all game logic and programming using C++. So let's see if this runs. Yep. Oh, wait. Yeah, you guys can see that, right? Oh, there we go. What? There we go. Boom. Swap that. And this is the origin of this guy. But Tetris is actually a really good game to as like a first project, just because it moves along a grid. It's complex in its simplicity almost, and part of it was there was this so this is all running in C++. I did use like the Pixel, it's called the Pixel game engine, which turn Mega Man off there, which is basically a framework. Like you still have to put in all the collision logic and everything like that. See if I can get a Tetris here. And I actually got decently good at Tetris as I do that. Okay. Hey, I got 1,300 points. Let's enter to play again. Oh, did it give me the same pieces every time? He goes through Tetris history as he recreates the small increments between every version of the game. Yeah, that's true. I guess, yeah, the original Tetris was done. I would love to see the the original Tetris was on a Russian computer, or I guess a Soviet computer. I'd be interested to see how that exactly was programmed. But the neat thing about this, so with it all being in C++, like this is the field. It's a string, and I formatted the code this way, but this could just as much be actually, it's probably easier. Undo. It's probably easier to see if I hover it, I think. Yeah, I mean that's what it looks like, just if like in the human readable form. And that is, I keep wanting to hit the buttons like it's and that is all of this. And the cool thing is that as as pieces get dropped, wrong buttons. As the pieces get dropped, this is the field. I hit my debug buttons. So this actually, that string, I mean, you can't really see it, but if I had the ability to pause, which maybe I do. I do, maybe, no. So it actually changes this string here so that it references each of these sprites. Like it's not like each piece actually is it's really just data, which I think is really cool. So as the space, like the renderer comes through and says like, so I have a big X, which is just a collider that's invisible. I have a small X, which tells it to be the border. Then a space means don't draw anything. And then let me see. This is kind of a big mess because again, it was a first project where it was like, let's put everything into this like this one thing. If I can find it. Let me see. Yeah, there it is. Yeah, so basically it has a list of tiles that it can, they're all ASCII because it's just something to represent it, right? When it's drawing the field, all it needs to know is just like, I just need a piece of data that says draw a blue square or draw a blank space or draw a border piece. And so that's what all of this is. It's using a W string or W char to do it. And this is the reset, which is just that initial setup, which is what we used. Let's see. Yeah, we won't go into the lock into field because that gets a little funky. So is that, I'm just trying to look at where it draws it. Where are we? Animation. Where do you draw? Draw field. So it's just, and because it's instead of using a 2D array, it's just the string is just it's just an array of data. So it has a defined width. So there's just the X position. I don't know why I did it this way, where I'm rolling through like I have a Y and an X position, but it's really just rolling through. And this is not the cleanest way to do it, but it's doing it else if, but it's looking at every single character and saying like, okay, what is it? If it's blank, it draws a the back rectangle. If it's the border left, right, draw that. If it's, here we go. If it's an eyepiece, draw a part of the sprite. And this is all for the different pieces, which is all part of the sprite, which is big reveal, maybe. And that's the sprite for the different pieces. So it's just making it up of, oh, this one is all cyan, this one is all blue, this one is all, so it's just, don't have to store it twice. You don't have to store it in the shape. You just indexes and do, it has the width of each one of these. So it says, oh, okay, give me index 3. All right. Yeah, I've been rambling for a while, so I get you, Scrooge. But thank you for being here. Yeah, I mean, check out Final Fantasy 14. If you know what you're getting into, then I think you'll really enjoy it. And I wouldn't mind hopping on and playing if anybody wants to hop on. I used to do a lot of raids and things like that, and everything from like extreme trials to to like just going through the story. I would love to do the nice thing. It has a new game plus. You can play through the game. It's not the same as the first time through, but I would love to like just start from the beginning, because I played through A Realm Reborn in like 2019, And so and I played through A Realm Reborn over like the course of like a year to actually get through it. Let me see. So looking at my notes here. All right, yeah. So ooh, this is good. Anybody on here that's a member? My member video is literally just like me doing this, and I saw that somebody became a member to watch that video, and I kind of felt a little bad. It's like I hope that it worked out for you. So on that note, yeah, memberships are available. You know, if you want to help support, you do get early access to videos and things like that, and once I get it working, you get some nice emojis in chat and things like that. And yeah, it's not listed as one of the perks, but I kind of put up like just funny little behind the scenes things every once in a while, as well as you get your name in the credits. So I got to update my credits for the next video. And let's see. You guys think I fixed everything, or is this still going to be broken? Let's get one more big explosion. Yeah, that's what I got. So, okay, so next time, yeah, maybe next week we'll go through and work on the actually go through and code the system to make this work in a logical manner. So appreciate you guys all hanging out and just kind of watching me kind of walk through all this stuff. I know it's kind of different than I've only done a couple of streams, and I guess now 2 out of 3 has been me yapping, where the other one was me actually doing some development. But yeah, I plan on doing this every week as much as I can. So I think it's about time to call it a day. Check out the Discord if you're not on the Discord. And yeah, next week planning on going a little bit more into creating the ability system, as well as for anybody who was there for the first stream, we gotta finish this. Oh, I didn't open it in Paint, so I can't edit it. But this picture is important, and there's a area over here and an area over here that we need to connect. So yeah, appreciate you guys hanging out with me. Oop, let me look at you closer. So Scrooge, if I see you in Final Fantasy 14, that'd be great. Everybody else, thanks for hanging out. It really means a lot to have you guys here. So yeah. And I'm easy. If you haven't noticed, I'm easy to derail. So if there's anything you want me to talk about, in future streams, you know the secret. Just put something in my brain and then I go off on it. So yeah, I'm looking forward to the next video too. I'm working hard on getting that finished up. It might be another week or two, probably two, to get it out. But I'm pretty excited with how the battle system came out. So again, appreciate you all being here. Let's call it a day. So I'll catch you on the next one. All right, see you guys.